Hey everyone, let's take a look at the game Valley of the Kings. So let's start by talking about the game and what it's like. So Valley of the Kings is the first of a series of 3 Valley of the Kings games. It's a deck builder game, very classic deck builder. It's a mini deck builder where we're playing pharaohs in Egypt and we're collecting artifacts and sets of artifacts to put in our tomb, and the idea is artifacts and combinations of artifacts give us victory points, and our objective is to get us more victory points than anybody else. We're supposed kind of a treasure hoarding kind of game. It's a mini deck builder. It's only got about 75 to 100 cards in the basic deck. So if you're used to other deck builders like, say, Legendary or Dominion, where you have tons and tons and tons of cards, this is a much smaller deck with a lot fewer options. So let's very briefly talk about the components. So there are really only 2 components to this game when it gets right down to it. There's a deck of cards and a rulebook. Now, the rulebook is standard rulebook, and we'll talk more about the rulebook later. And the cards are reasonably high quality. They're pretty much what I call a standard poker deck. They're linen with a glossy finish. They're not really, really thick and heavy, but they're perfectly adequate for what I'd call a standard card game. Let's go ahead and talk about the art of this game. For what basically constitutes a low-cost pickup game, I think the MSRP is $14, maybe $15, somewhere in that range. This is a beautiful game. It's centered around an Egyptian theme, and we'll talk about the theme later on. And you see here on the screen an example of the artwork. It's just absolutely stellar, in my opinion, for Egyptian artwork. And it does everything right. It's got good art right at the top. You see the pictures of the statues here in this case. It's got a couple of numeric values, which we'll talk later on what they mean. One is gold, which is how much is it worth, and the one is how much does it cost, which those are different. It has a special ability, and they've even taken the time to go to the bottom of the picture and put in a little kind of Egyptian piece of information. And then at the very bottom of the page, you'll see here, this one says statues. These are statue cards. They come into there are different types of cards. These are statue cards. So the art here, absolutely beautiful, very correct for the Egyptian style theme. If you're going to do an Egyptian game, you're going to have Egyptian art. So really, really good Egyptian art. Now let's talk a little bit about the rule book. So that does come with a rule book. Of course, it has to come with a rule book. It's about 19 pages long. Really, about the first 10 pages will get you running into the game, and it comes with my personal favorite, player aids, which are pretty good here. They're basically telling you what the turn order is. The iconography is so small on here. I mean, they're really on a card. Only 3 items 3 items plus the card description, which we'll talk about in a little bit, that you need to know about. The rule book is very easy to understand. It takes things out. Don't remember if it does an inventory or not. Let's see. It does do. In fact, there's 96 cards in the deck, so it does give you a components list at the beginning. Pretty easy to understand. There is only one thing, and this is more about the game I guess it's kind of about the rule book as well, which is that, and I've noticed this with AEG games like Smash Up as well, is they will use keyword terms, and you need to know exactly what the keyword means. So there's one card which I ran across where it says, take an artifact. That's the ability. Well, what the word take means in this case is take from the pyramid. Not take from your hand, not take from your discard, but take from the pyramid. Or not take from your draw hand. So if you go back onto the Alderac website, they actually have basically a glossary which explains what all these terms are. It's not in the rule book. So it's a good rule book, but a lot of times you'll hit terms and you may not understand exactly what they mean, and you might have to look them up. Other than that, the good rule book and player aids, which you know how I feel about player aids. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the theme of this game. It's a beautiful Egyptian theme, but I want to talk about it a little bit. So you'll hear me talk about themes being pasted on and whether or not the theme is tightly integrated with the rules and the concept of the game. And the answer here is this is a deck builder game with a set collection component. The theme is completely pasted on, but it's fun. This could have just as easily been about Native American artifacts, Old West artifacts, Viking artifacts, European artifacts, and the game would have been effectively exactly the same. Now, the pyramid, which they use as the mechanics, would be kind of a little strange. But basically, yeah, the theme is pasted on, but it's fun anyway. I like looking at the item cards. I like collecting them, and they have little quotes on them about Egyptian history. So, pasted on theme, still a lot of fun. So let's talk about playing the game. So setup for this game is pretty easy. Each person gets a starter deck of 10 cards. They're all the same. You get a tomb card. You get your player reference card. The tomb is where you're going to put in scoring cards in a little bit. You create 2 decks that stack upon each other. There's a number 2 deck and a number 3 deck. It's basically the items that they get progressively more expensive. That's a draw pile for the pyramid. You put out a pyramid of 6 cards face up, and then you're ready to go. The first player then draws 5 cards off of his personal draw pile, and he plays them. Now, when you look at a card, there are 3 things you want to know about the card, well, really 4. One is in the upper left-hand corner, there's a gold. That's how much that card is worth if you're buying items. The upper right-hand corner has a number. That's how much, if you were to buy this card, it would cost. In the middle of the card, there's a special ability you can play, and then at the bottom, it says either starter, unique, or a set of a collection such as statues, canopic jars, so on and so forth. And from a scoring perspective, that becomes important. You take the 5 cards in your hand, and you want to basically play as many of them as you can. Now, how can you play the cards? Well, you can take any card or combination of cards, add up the gold value, and buy from the base of the pyramid. You can only buy from the bottom row. This is interesting because you get to see what's coming up. It's not that you're always drawing saying, oh, well, what's available this turn? Well, you actually get a feeling for what's going to come up in the future couple of turns. So, you can buy a card from the base row. You can buy multiple cards from the base row if you want to. So that's the first thing you can do. You can take the card and play its special ability. There are all sorts of special abilities. Some of them impact only you. There are also a few gotcha abilities, like there's one where you play it and the other players have to take a card out of their hand, discard it, and put it in your discard pile, basically giving it to you. There's also one where you draw 3 cards off of the top of your deck. You get to put one in the discard pile, you get to give one to your opponent, and you get to entomb one. It's kind of an interesting mechanic as a war board, but there's all sorts of interesting special abilities, and they're a lot of fun. Then third is you can take a card and entomb it. You can put it in the vault. Now, when you do that, it's no longer available for play, but it's the only way you can score cards. And you can only entomb 1 card per turn. So you pretty much, every turn or every couple of turns, you want to make sure that you're taking a card and entombing it. And I typically started with the starter deck. I just started entombing those to get them out of my hand. If you've played Legendary, the Marvel Legendary, you start with a starter deck, and one of the kind of tricks to the game is getting those starter decks out of your hand. You get them KO'd, so that you draw better cards, because you always draw up to 5. So you play all the cards you want. When your turn is over, you draw up to 5, and your turn is over, and you move to the next person. Now, on the pyramid, if you bought any cards, what happens is the pyramid crumbles. Everything moves down towards the base of the pyramid. There are some rules about how that works. It's pretty easy, and you put a new card at the top. You play until all the cards are gone out of the pyramid, and the game is over. So it took us, we played 2 of us, and it took about 30 to 45 minutes to play with our first time learning. So that's the game. The game is a lot of fun as a deck builder. Oh, by the way, if you don't have enough cards to draw, just like with any deck builder, you shuffle your deck and draw from the top. It's a lot of fun as a deck builder. Now, Tom Vassell from Dice Tower had pointed out, because he did a review of both this one and the new one, Afterlife, and his concern, and I think he's right, is because it's a small deck builder and you only start with 10 cards and you're probably only adding 1 or 2 cards to your deck per turn, you spend a lot of time shuffling. So if your hand is 5, you can pretty much figure that you're going to play 2 turns and you're going to shuffle. And in those 2 turns, you might add, if you're lucky, 3 or 4 cards, so you're going to shuffle again after a couple turns. So it takes a while till you get a deck built up where you're not shuffling all the time. That's a real classic problem with deck builders I've found. But in this one in particular, kind of a problem, because you tend to be playing a lot of cards. Also, you don't keep the cards in your hand. Like Legendary, if you've ever played Legendary, you get rid of all your cards at the end. Same thing here. You're going to discard all your cards at the end of the hand. That kind of makes that need to shuffle also kind of a problem. Other than the shuffling, it is just a fun, easy game. I put this in my classic. I've got a bunch of what I call pickup games. This, Octodice, Dungeon Dungeon Busters, that's what it's called, which they're easy to teach and are great for you're sitting waiting for a movie or a concert or whatever. It'll fit in a backpack. I'm going to go down to the zoo here. I'm going to put this in my backpack so if anybody wants to play it, we can play it. Really, really nice, nice play style, easy to learn, fairly competitive. You can be fairly competitive about it coming out. So, as far as the game playing the game goes, standard classic mini deck builder, a lot of fun to play. I will tell you, I was pretty skeptical about this game when I ordered it and got it. I got it from AEG, and I was pretty skeptical about it because, well, it was the Egyptian theme, it was a mini card game, so on and so forth. But I really, honestly, really like the game. It is a lot of fun. It's a lot of blast. If you're looking for a deep Egyptian theme game, it's just not. It's not that kind of game. It's got an Egyptian theme, but the mechanics are definitely not Egyptian. And it does kind of have an Egyptian feel to it, but yeah, it's not a heavy Egyptian style game. If you remember, if you've ever played the game Lost Cities, the card game, it has again a really good game. Lost Cities is a blast of a game. And this kind of has that same flavor to it where, yeah, it's got a theme, the theme is cool, the theme is a lot of fun, but you could paste on another theme on top of this and it would be, in fact, be just as good a game. That being said, I do think that Tom Cleaver did a great job with getting the artwork well. The little quotes at the bottom are good. The pyramid mechanic is fun. I think it does, in terms of a deck builder, add something new which you don't see very often. Is normally you think about drawing off the top of the deck, and then you get a choice that turn off of the stuff you see. Here you're getting a picture of what's coming towards the future, which is kind of neat in terms of a deck builder game. So definitely going to keep this game really solid. There are 2 expansions for this. There's Afterlife and Last Rites. I'll be talking about those later on and how they work. They're kind of a unique way. I like those as well. But other than that, yeah, definitely a winner. Hope you enjoy the game.